Hello, this is Greg Wagner. I just wanted to give a quick, so we do a quick lecture on the basis of like transitioning from C Sharp to Java. Um, I've been aware that I just got notified that there's a bunch of people in this class that don't have Java and from CIS 131. So I just want to give a quick kind of overview. But for you guys, I'm not too concerned. C Sharp is very similar to Java, and I think you'll be able to make the transition very quickly. And then also, in the second half of this class, all the material we knew from everyone, even if they had Java before, we're mostly going to be focusing on user interfaces and databases, and so that will be one of the issues. And so Java is very similar to C Sharp. They both use C++ syntax. So they both use the same type of parentheses, indentions, and mainly similar keywords. And so basically, when you make commands with with a semicolon for both of them, you have loops. You make loops the same way with curly braces, and methods the same way with curly braces and a header. Um, and then both are object-oriented programming. So when you go over the object-oriented programming for your last class, the actual kind of mechanics are very similar. So kind of what you just need to do in your head is kind of do the transition of the slight differences. But for this, for most part, they aren't that much. Actually, Java is, or I'm sorry, C Sharp is Microsoft's attempt to copy Java from Sun, and so they basically wanted to steal away Java users. So that it's going to be a very easy transition for you. Um, I believe, I mean, that's what Microsoft was trying to do with this with C Sharp, and so I think converting back to Java is going to be very simple for you. And then again, it's object-oriented languages, so they're both class-based, and then all the method, everything's a method. So I think you'll see when I do the demo here in a second, you'll see they're very similar, and they're also both interpreted languages. So Java uses the Java virtual machine, which basically you compile the code into an intermediate language, and the Java virtual machine runs that um, programming. And then, if you remember from C Sharp, if we went over what happens is you get an intermediate language, and the CIL interpreter um, CLI interpreter, I'm sorry, converts the code into a readable language. So the mechanics are actually very similar, and that was a Microsoft intentionally that did that. So the main differences are, if you remember from C Sharp, use a namespace overarch for your program. In Java, you basically use a class, and so you have basically a top level class, then you have some classes within it, or you can put methods and stuff like that. Um, And then also for your classes, for your top level class has to match your file name in Java. And then when you make it into what's called a jar file, which is like a kind of a package file, if you need to do that for your program, your jar file will be the same name as your top level class. So say for example, my top level class is driver, which is for your first assignment. Your file name will also be driver.java. And I'll show that when I do the Hello World program here in a second. And then in Java, also the big difference is, and you'll see this again in a second, you use import to bring in outside, basically outside classes, and whereas in C Sharp you use using. Okay, to actually show you the actual differences between the two languages, on the left here is a Java code, and on the right is some C Sharp code, and basically it's projecting a hello world output where we have hello world just in the command statement, and then hello world as part of an array. So kind of the first things first, notice here on the top, I'm bringing in array list, which is what we're going to use later for outputting the values, and I use import. And then, and here's C Sharp where it's in systems.collections. So it's a little bit different there as far as syntax goes. And one thing is, for all the imports, it's kind of the same thing with C Sharp. You guys are using Visual Studio, which is a really good IDE. Eclipse is, I wouldn't say as good, but it's a pretty good one. It should auto-fill this stuff in. That's one of the reasons why I suggest using IDE for this class. And I like Eclipse, but you can use IntelliJ, NetBeans, or any of the other ones. So kind of the first thing difference is I have my top level class here, Hello World. Notice here we have the namespace Hello World is the top level thing, and then in this case I have Hello World.java as the name, and then Hello World.cs for this particular program. And then I have the main function. So I have public static like you would in Java. The string value here, these are just inputs you can bring in from the command line. I didn't put that in the main, but you can also do that in C# as well. And so another difference is the output is I'm going to do system.out.println as the method for printing out to the screen. Notice here we do console.writeLine, and we're taking that from the systems namespace. I think you used to be able to, but I wasn't able to do it for this program. You can actually use import systems, but I wasn't. When I was testing this out earlier, I wasn't able to do that. So I think they might have taken that capability out. But this is basically the same hello world. So one of the big changes is console.writeLine. You did in C#, and for this class, you're going to do system.out.println. There's also print, which doesn't go to the next line. And if you want to do some formatting, which you can look it up later, is you can do printf, which will do some formatting similar to the kind of the console printouts you do. And so now the next part is and I mainly did this so I can just show you kind of how to make a method and a loop, is we're going to make a list that says hello world in a row like this. So I'm going to do array list, and then in the braces is the type string. My AL is the variable, so you can see this is very similar to the way you do it in C#, where I have array list. And array list in this case it's implying that it's a string, but it doesn't quite know. It just says generic objects. I have my AL, and then I'm doing new array list. So notice how we declare a new object to use new for both these languages. So that's kind of one of the things it took away from C++. And so then I'm doing an add here. The main thing I want to notice is, you got you're adding the method to this particular class. I have a lowercase a for this one, uppercase A for in C#. That's the only main difference. And that's kind of a style thing. In C#, classes start with uppercase A. Generally is a style thing for C++. Methods start with a uppercase A. In C++, in Java, generally methods start with a lowercase letter. They use what's called the camel case, where each additional word has an uppercase. Whereas in C#, the kind of the best practice was everything is Pascal case, where the first letter is always uppercase. But that's the main difference. So this is an example of camel case. So notice that the V is uppercase here. This is called Pascal case, where the P and the V are uppercase in this particular case. So I add the values in. I'm going to go into my method. Notice how I have print static void for both of these. Passing in the value. The example I took for C# is a enumerable, which basically means, okay, I'm taking this in this object. And the next big change is, notice how I'm going to do a for each, where I'm taking all the values. So in C#, the for each is, you have your type, your variable in, and then the list you want to have the for each run through. In Java, it's type, variable, and colon, and then whatever the value is. And then the for, actually, if you don't do the kind of the for each case in Java, the for is actually exactly the same as it would be in C#. And then here again, I'm printing out the values, and I would get this output. And again, I am here to help you. I want to make sure you're successful in this class. So if you have any issues, you get stuck somewhere, I kind of do a rule of thumb. If you're stuck on the same problem for a program for more than 30 minutes, take a break and stop. Maybe come back to it later. And if you're still stuck again, give me a call or email me. And if you're going to email me, send your code, and I'll take a look at it and just tell me what the error is, what you want to specifically look at. If you're really stuck or want to talk to me in a little bit more in depth, unfortunately, since I'm adjunct, I don't have an office, and I work during the day. However, I am available in the evenings and weekends if you need to meet up with me. Just give me a call or email me, and I will make an appointment to meet you someplace. So I hope this helps you get started with your assignment. And again, if you need help, use the discussion boards, or you can contact me.